The red
This is the
dragon
book
stood
I
upon the
told you
shattered
about.
walls of the ancient
The
fortress,
story
and
of
the
the
sky
bear?
above him
Yes.
burned like a
Look
wound
inside.
that refused to
Intriguing.
close. Villagers trembled behind broken gates, and armored soldiers tightened their grips on spears that felt suddenly far too light for what faced them. 3 generations' mothers had whispered warnings about the red dragon who descended without mercy and left only smoke and bone. They said he did not speak. They said he did not reason. They said he did not spare. His scales shimmered like molten iron pulled fresh from a blacksmith's forge, and each slow breath that left his nostrils curled into the air like a promise of ruin. The banners of the kingdom snapped wildly in the heated wind as knights arranged themselves in defensive ranks beneath the trembling towers. Every man there had heard the stories. Entire battalions turned to ash. Castles melted into rivers of stone. Rivers themselves boiled until fish floated lifeless upon their own graves. And yet this day felt different in a way none of them could explain. Because the red dragon was not roaring. He was not spreading his wings in challenge. He was not unleashing flame upon the city. He was standing still, still as a statue carved from wrath. And in his enormous claws something impossible rested. A book, a small worn leather-bound book that looked fragile against the curve of his talon. The soldiers noticed it first. Then the captain lowered his sword slightly as confusion rippled through the ranks. Dragons did not read. Dragons conquered. Dragons devoured. Yet there it was. A book pressed gently between claws that could shatter towers. The red dragon lowered his massive head and opened the cover with surprising care. The sound of turning pages was soft and deliberate and carried across the silent courtyard like falling leaves. No fire came. No roar followed. Only the quiet voice of a dragon, reading words meant for humans. The captain swallowed and stepped forward despite every instinct screaming at him to run. What sorcery is this? He shouted toward the towering beast. The red dragon lifted his eyes, and for the first time in living memory, his gaze did not burn with fury. It held something far stranger. Understanding. You fear me, the dragon said, and his voice rolled like distant thunder across the stone. You have every reason to. Several soldiers dropped to their knees expecting death. But the dragon did not move to strike. Instead, he tilted the book slightly so the captain could see its cover. It was simple and old and marked with a faded sigil of the Royal Academy. The captain blinked in disbelief. That is a human text, he said. Yes, the dragon replied. It is a record of your histories, of your wars, of your failures, of your courage. The courtyard remained frozen as the dragon carefully turned another page. I have studied you for many years, he continued. I have watched your kind rise from scattered tribes to builders of cities. I have watched you fall and rise again stronger each time. The captain felt his fear twisting into something else. Why would you study us, he demanded. Because the dragon answered softly. I once believed humans were insignificant. Brief sparks that flicker and vanish. But this book tells a different story. The wind shifted and ash from old battles swirled around the dragon like ghosts listening to his confession. You rebuild when destroyed, he said. You defend those weaker than yourselves. You create art in the shadow of death. You write your pain into pages so that memory outlives flesh. The soldiers exchanged stunned glances. No dragon had ever spoken like this. 4 centuries with dragons ruled by strength alone, the red dragon continued. We believed fire was the purest truth. But strength fades. Empires crumble. Even dragons grow weary of endless war. He lifted the book slightly higher. This book was found in the ruins of a village I burned long ago. There was no treasure, no gold, only this. He paused, and the weight of that admission pressed upon every heart in the courtyard. It survived the flames. The pages were scorched, but the words endured. The captain felt his throat tighten. And what did those words say? The dragon closed his eyes briefly. They told of a child who believed dragons were not born evil. They told of hope that even monsters might choose differently. The soldiers shifted uneasily, unsure whether they were witnessing deception or revelation. The dragon slowly folded his wings, and the ground trembled not from aggression but from the sheer weight of him settling down. I have lived longer than your oldest kingdoms, he said. I have seen mountains split and seas retreat. Yet I have never seen a species endure like yours. You are fragile. You are divided. You are reckless. And yet you persist. The captain lowered his sword completely, now unable to ignore the sincerity in the dragon's voice. If you have come to destroy us, then do it, he said quietly. But do not mock us with false mercy. The red dragon opened the book once more and began to read aloud. He read of farmers rebuilding fields after invasion. He read of soldiers who shielded children with their own bodies. He read of scholars who preserved knowledge through dark ages. Each word echoed across stone walls that had prepared to crumble. When he finished, he looked at them not as prey, but as something worthy of respect. I feared humans once, he said, not for your strength, but for your resilience. Because resilience cannot be burned away. It cannot be crushed beneath claws. It grows in the cracks left by devastation. The captain felt something impossible rising within his chest. Hope. Then why are you here, he asked. The dragon carefully closed the book and held it against his chest like something sacred. Because fear has ruled this land long enough. I will not be your executioner today. Gasps rippled through the ranks. Instead, the dragon continued. I offer a choice. Dragons and humans have fought for centuries. We have proven our power against one another. But what if power was not the only path? The captain stared upward, heart pounding. What are you suggesting? An alliance, the dragon said. Knowledge for strength. Wisdom for protection. Your scholars teach my kind the art of preserving history. My kind defends your city from threats beyond your reach. The soldiers could scarcely comprehend the words. Dragons did not bargain. Dragons demanded. Yet here stood the most feared among them offering partnership. Why would the other dragons agree, the captain asked. The red dragon exhaled slowly, and a small controlled flame flickered harmlessly above his palm, illuminating the worn edges of the book. Because they too grow tired, he said. Tired of endless conquest. Tired of empty victories. Tired of ruling over ashes. He stepped forward, and the ground shook, but no building fell. I am cold red not only for my scales, but for the blood I have spilled. If I can change, then others can as well. The captain turned to his men, who now looked less like warriors awaiting death, and more like witnesses to history reshaping itself. And if we refuse, he asked cautiously. The dragon met his gaze steadily. Then I will leave. But know this. There are darker things stirring beyond your borders. Creatures that do not read. Creatures that do not reason. Creatures that see both dragon and human as prey. Silence stretched between them as the weight of that warning settled over the city. The captain felt the truth in those words like a distant storm rumbling beyond sight. He stepped forward until he stood directly beneath the towering dragon. You would fight beside us. I would fight for the future described in this book, the dragon replied. A future where fear does not decide destiny. The captain slowly extended his hand, knowing full well the dragon could crush him in an instant. Instead, the red dragon lowered one massive claw and gently touched the stone beside the captain in a gesture of truce. The soldiers lowered their weapons one by one as disbelief transformed into cautious resolve. From the highest tower, a child who had hidden during the entire encounter finally peeked out. The dragon noticed and did not bare his teeth. Instead, he lifted the book slightly and nodded toward the tower. The child raised a small trembling hand in return. And in that moment, something older than war shifted across the land. The red dragon, who once symbolized destruction, now stood as proof that even the fiercest flame could choose not to burn. The soldiers would later say that they feared the red dragon more than death itself, until they saw what book he was holding, and realized the most powerful force in the world was not fire, but the decision to change.